And then Bob dropped the bombshell. Clear out your room next month. When my mother gets discharged from the hospital, I'm bringing her straight to this house. Living together might make household chores easier, but I'll have to face my mother-in-law and endure her snide comments every single day. I was utterly devastated. Understanding that he seemed determined to make this happen with his mother, rather than argue with him, I knew it was better to discreetly take measures. Years of experience had taught me that. Bob left, not suspecting a thing, and seemed quite pleased. Everything's going according to my plan, I thought. It was so simple, it was laughable. A few hours later, after tidying up and taking a break, my phone rang loudly. It was a frantic call from Bob. Hey, what the heck? The house is empty. I am Catherine Rose, a 45-year-old working mother holding a managerial position at a publishing company. I have a husband and 2 kids, a typical American family. When I got married, the idea of balancing work and family was just beginning to gain traction. It was an era when it was common for women to marry and become homemakers. Bob had allowed me to work, and in return, I've given my all to both my job and household chores. After having kids, I've been fully committed to raising them as well. But lately, I've been feeling overwhelmed. My mother-in-law, Mary, who was initially against me working, has started to complain. When are you going to stop this job nonsense? You're such a terrible wife. Back in our day, the job came second. Our main duty was to dedicate ourselves to our homes. I've been working hard in both my career and home, raising the kids and managing household chores. I'd always thought of it as repaying the kindness Bob showed by supporting my career. Perhaps seeing my dedication, both my daughter and son help around the house. My daughter does the laundry and ironing, while my son takes care of the bath and fills the tub every day. When I come home, I just have to prepare the meal and clean up. I'm so grateful to my kids. But even though we're both working, Bob doesn't lift a finger. I've asked him to help out several times, but Bob's answer is always the same. Catherine, I let you keep working, didn't I? You're trying to skip out on your wife duties and make me do the chores because you want to have an easy life. Quit playing the victim. And every time my mother-in-law would tattle on me, and I'd get an earful from her. Bob's the breadwinner of the family, you know, and you're trying to make him do house chores. What are you thinking, Mary? This is why it's never good for a woman to work. Be grateful I even let you work. Understand your place. Lately, perhaps she's bored, but almost every night she calls with these snide remarks. It's become so frequent and unbearable that both my kids and I are fed up. My kids have even started pretending they are needed somewhere else to hang up the phone. Sure, I'd appreciate the opportunity to keep working, but why the constant hostility? I've been the one handling both the household chores and raising the kids. She should understand how challenging it is to juggle both roles. What more does she want from me? Right now, I'm under so much stress, and the only saving grace is that my kids are on my side. The root cause of this situation lies in Bob's salary. Truth be told, Bob's pay isn't that great. It would be considered on the lower end. He had a tough time finding a job and eventually landed one at a small company thanks to a family connection. If he had shown some initiative, I wouldn't have cared about the low salary and would have supported him wholeheartedly. However, Bob got down on himself because of the way he got the job. In the beginning, he used to mutter things about how he should have been working at a bigger, more renowned company. He only ever did the work given to him, never striving for promotions or looking for new job opportunities. Someone truly capable would have studied on the side or honed their skills to find better job opportunities, but Bob didn't. So he only ever got raises based on seniority, and his performance-based bonuses were always the bare minimum. On the other hand, the company I work for is a nationwide corporation with parental leave policies in place early on. While it felt the effects of the economic bubble, it's a reputable company that has managed to avoid major salary cuts. Moreover, I've climbed up to the position of manager, successfully handling a significant number of contracts and projects. Naturally, I've earned considerably more than Bob. I'm even covering our kids' expenses, using my paycheck to set aside money for their college funds. I've taken full advantage of the benefits of working for a large corporation. Looking back, it feels like I was living off my savings when I took parental leave for my 2 children and had no salary. With Bob's salary, there's no way he could cover all the living expenses with 2 kids. I don't recall ever receiving living expenses from Bob, and there's no record of any transfers. Perhaps Bob let me continue working because he thought he could rely on my earnings. Lately, I've been thinking about this a lot, wondering if we've mostly been living on my salary. To confirm this suspicion, I looked at my bank book, and it became evident. The rent, utilities, groceries, and the kids' school fees. I've been paying for all of it. There's not a single penny coming in from Bob's account. I chuckled, feeling utterly drained. Bob's salary is completely spent on his hobbies and providing pocket money to my mother-in-law. I've always believed I owed Bob for allowing me to continue working, which is why I've been putting in so much effort with household chores and childcare. However, the current situation is quite different. I'm covering all the living expenses while Bob freely spends his salary without saving a dime. In terms of supporting our lives, it seems I've become the main breadwinner, while Bob does as he pleases. If I were to leave with the kids, what would happen? Or if I handed him this bank book and told him to leave, would Bob quietly go along with his claim of being the main breadwinner? It's a perplexing situation, and I can't comprehend his perspective. His catchphrase is, "I'm the one supporting y'all. If you've got a problem, just leave." Is he under the impression that he covers the living expenses while spending his salary freely? It's a total mystery. If I, the one paying for everything, were to leave with the kids, what would transpire? Would Bob just quietly go along, sticking to his claim of being the main breadwinner? He'd probably tattle to my mother-in-law. I wonder if she knows about the difference in our salaries. If she did, she likely wouldn't make those snide remarks. Perhaps she thinks Bob is a wonderful son, supporting his family and even allowing his wife to work. If she knew about the salary difference, what would she think? Would she ditch Bob and cozy up to me? No, that's the last thing I'd want. As I contemplate these thoughts, my mother-in-law has an accident at her home and hurts her foot. It appears she'll need hospitalization and physical therapy for a while. With my father-in-law having passed away before Bob and I got married, my mother-in-law has been living alone. Either Bob or I have to take care of her. In a call from the hospitalized mother-in-law, she starts with her demands and continues despite my attempt to explain my work situation. I decide to let Bob handle her, given the stress of being criticized by her for working. When I ask Bob to care for my mother-in-law, he complains immediately. "Hey, Catherine, why aren't you looking after Mom? I'm working too, you know." Despite being his mother, he shifts all caregiving responsibilities to his wife. Holding back my frustration, I reply, "I have work too, Bob, plus all the chores at home. If you'd help around the house, maybe I could visit her more. More importantly, I think your mom would be happier if it was you who came to care for her." While venting stress on a daughter-in-law is common, it's better to approach such situations with positivity. So I keep finding reasons to avoid caring for my mother-in-law. I diligently washed and folded my mother-in-law's laundry, carefully packing it into a bag. If she asked for specific items, I made sure to buy them, even checking the names of the products she requested. Even if Bob took credit for these things and I ended up shouldering the blame, I didn't mind. I just wanted to avoid hearing my mother-in-law's snide remarks. Thankfully, my judgment seemed right. My mother-in-law greeted Bob with a big smile every day. Apparently, for a mother like mine, nothing beats the joy of being cherished by her son. Having her beloved son around must feel much better than dealing with a daughter-in-law she'd want to make sarcastic comments about every day. It seemed like she eagerly awaited Bob's return from work, focusing on chatting with him. She handed Bob a shopping list note, and since the first time she was admitted to the hospital, she hadn't called me. Observing my mother-in-law's smiling interactions with Bob, it seemed he felt like he was being a good son. Even when he returned home at night, He handed me the laundry and shopping notes without any complaints. Although Bob would throw in some sarcastic remarks at me while handing over my mother-in-law's things, I was able to live peacefully. In the middle of the night, I muttered to myself that I just didn't want to hear any of my mother-in-law's complaints right now. I hoped for things to stay peaceful for a while. However, injuries took a toll on my mother-in-law's age, and despite my efforts through Bob for her rehab, she tended to skip it. Delighted with her son's visits, she would wait in her room for Bob's arrival, making various requests. While my mother-in-law rarely called on me directly, I was the one who actually fulfilled her requests, running errands, doing laundry, and even bringing her snacks. All she did was sit in her hospital room, chatting cheerfully with her son, while I handled the housework. It was a relief not to see my mother-in-law, but I was worn out from her numerous requests, and shopping alone became a significant chore. Understanding that living alone was inconvenient with her weakened legs, my mother-in-law made a shocking request to Bob. She expressed difficulty in shopping and preparing meals, asking him not to leave her alone. Of course, Bob sided with her, suggesting they live together. It seemed they were moving in that direction without consulting me. Finally, Bob dropped the bombshell. He would be living with his mother starting next month, instructing me to clear out my room. From the perspective of efficiency in household chores, it made sense for my mother-in-law to live with us. However, I was now faced with the prospect of seeing my mother-in-law every day and enduring her nagging. Despite my downcast feelings, Bob acted as if it was already decided that we would all live together. "I understand," I replied with little energy. Bob seemed determined to force this co-living situation, regardless of the despair I felt. It might be better to secretly make plans rather than argue about it. I knew this from years of experience. While Bob and my mother-in-law happily planned for the move, I constantly thought about how I could escape. I have my own room where I gather and review work materials. It's like a study or an office, essential for me. Bob wants me to give it up. Without this room, my work would be impacted, and I might have to come home even later than I do now. I muttered to myself while staring at the bookshelf, wondering where to move all these books and documents. I can't leave them at home if we live with my mother-in-law. They're too important to risk getting thrown away or damaged. It may sound like something out of a TV drama, but I really fear she might throw them out, especially since she'll probably target what she knows is important to me. And if I dare complain, she'll feign ignorance and run to Bob for support. There will be no peace for me in this house once we start living together. I can see her bossing me around and making snide remarks about my work, wearing me out. What should I do? If my mother-in-law is coming to this house, I had a sudden realization. Why hadn't I thought of this simple solution before? It seems living with my mother-in-law and all her nagging wore me down more than I realized. It felt like the fog before my eyes was gradually clearing up. Well, of course, there's absolutely no need for me to hold back. Why didn't I realize something so simple? I mumbled to myself and immediately began making preparations. As the month changed, the day of my mother-in-law's discharge from the hospital arrived. Bob was all excited, having taken the day off from the start of the morning. "Hey, you better take proper care of my mom from now on. Don't think I'm going to step in like I did when she was in the hospital," he said in a commanding tone. Without responding to Bob's order, I changed the subject. "Oh, speaking of which, your mom's been in the hospital for quite a while, right? Hospital food is bland, and they don't give you much. I bet a gourmet like her wasn't satisfied. I think the discharge process and packing will take up the morning. So why don't you take her out for some good food? You took the day off after all. How about a nice drive, just the two of you? I think she'd really appreciate it." I handed Bob a generous amount of cash. I had set aside some money for living expenses and even Bob's personal spending, but this was more than his monthly allowance. Surprised by the unexpected bonus, Bob's spirits lifted even higher. "Well, aren't you thoughtful? All right, I'll use this money and go for a drive with my mom. I'll give you a call when we decide about dinner. Make sure the house is in tip-top shape for my mom. All right. Without a hint of suspicion, Bob happily left. Everything was going just as I had planned. It was almost too simple. I couldn't help but laugh. This should buy me some time. I eagerly anticipated Bob and my mother-in-law's return as I continued tidying up the house. It was crucial to finish cleaning before they came back. A few hours later, just as I was taking a break after completing my tasks, my cell phone rang loudly. The call came in a flustered tone from Bob. "Hey, what's going on? The house is empty." That's right. After Bob went to pick up my mother-in-law, I moved all our stuff to the new house we just rented. Of course, I left some of Bob's personal belongings and a bed for my mother-in-law in the room. "Oh, you're back already. You told me to clear out the room, so I emptied both the room and the living room for Mom to feel comfortable. From now on, please enjoy your time with her," I responded nonchalantly, which only infuriated Bob. "You've got to be kidding me. The living room and kitchen are totally empty. After all I've done to support this family, how could you?" There it was, his go-to line. He seemed to believe that saying this put him in a superior position. How naive. "No, Bob. I've been the one supporting the family, including you. Weren't you spending your paycheck on pocket money for your mom and your own hobbies, and yet you demand an allowance from the family budget? How does that make you the breadwinner?" Bob seemed surprised by my resistance, but he retorted nonetheless. His argument, however, was nonsensical. "Shut it. I'm the man here. I'm the head of this household. You, as my wife, should just do as I say. Now put everything back the way it was." "No thanks. I bought all the furniture in the living room and all the kitchenware with my salary. The kids are with me, so don't worry. I also paid for the rent, utilities, and groceries of that house. So, in reality, I'm the breadwinner. Why did you decide to live with your mom without consulting me? I can't live with someone so selfish as you. Wish you can be the provider. Now live your life as you please." It seemed that Bob finally realized my intentions. "Hold on. Are you saying the rent for this place I've paid up until the end of this month, but from next month, you'll need to handle it? I've also canceled all the automatic payments for electricity, gas, and the internet. So good luck with that." Bob's words probably tipped off the situation. My mother-in-law also started making a racket in a loud voice. "How could you do this, Catherine? Just because you have a job doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. Fine, Bob and I will live here in luxury." Oh, does my mother-in-law not know about Bob's earnings? I hope you can have that luxurious life. That is, if your son can afford it anyway. Goodbye. Wait, Catherine. Where are you right now? I didn't bother listening to the rest of Bob's rant. I hung up and blocked both Bob and my mother-in-law's numbers. The aftermath unfolded as expected. With his meager salary from an uninspiring job at a small company, Bob had little left after paying the rent and utilities for the needlessly spacious apartment that once housed a family of 4. Constant bickering between Bob and my mother-in-law became a regular occurrence. In their new, oversized living space, complaints about meals were met with retorts like, "Can't you provide something better for your mother? And shut up. If you want something else, make it yourself. You're just making excuses, saying walking is too hard after slacking off on your rehab. You don't do anything at home, Mom. You're just wasting time." Neglecting her rehabilitation, my mother-in-law's legs weakened, and she refused to engage in any home workouts. Frustration crept in as her unreasonable demands on Bob increased. There were even concerns about early signs of Alzheimer's. Adding my mother-in-law's pension, their financial situation felt like poverty. Moving to a smaller, more suitable place seemed logical, but it appeared Bob hadn't considered it. Since that incident, I had blocked all communication from both Bob and my mother-in-law. They didn't know our new address, and any attempts to contact me were futile. Their living situation was on the verge of collapse. With a decent income, thanks to my children's help, I managed to lease a nice apartment where each of my kids had their own room. A spacious room served as both a bedroom and workspace. Although the rent might be a bit high, Without Bob in the picture, I was saving more than enough. My children, tired of being belittled by their father, were now living freely. Their helpfulness around the house was evident, and chores felt good without the constant criticism. Praising and thanking them for their assistance became a normal occurrence, and I was glad my children hadn't become bitter. Heading back to the apartment where my kids awaited, I initiated divorce proceedings through a lawyer. I lived on my salary while Bob spent all his earnings on himself and my mother-in-law, a valid reason for divorce in my book. Bob tried to argue against it, but my lawyer shut him down every time. His claim of being the breadwinner without contributing was labeled as verbal and financial abuse. In exchange for not seeking alimony and child support, I got custody of the kids. We agreed on no property division since the savings for the kids' college were from my earnings. Grateful that the car and house were in my name and rented, I could now focus on my job without complaints. With the money saved for college and my future earnings, I planned to support my kids in whatever they'd wanted to pursue. Today, I was determined to work hard,